In this video, I'll be talking about a few tips for debugging and then moving into libraries, which are a way to extend the functionality of processing. At this point, we've been coding for a little bit of time, and hopefully you've developed some strategies to find problems when you run into them. For me, I think one of the key ones is to just organize your code. Be clear with the variable names. Sometimes adding spaces as necessary. I think formatting your code, hitting Command T on a Mac so that you can see the nesting a little bit more clearly and see the way that the code is really structured. And I think sometimes just taking a break can be helpful, especially if you've been working on something for a while. Sending your code to someone else or just getting someone else to look at it. I think we get a little bit of tunnel vision sometimes and we just get kind of stuck in our heads. Beyond that, I would say, this overlaps with organizing your code a little bit, but just trying to simplify things. That could mean, when you're coding, a lot of times you run into problems when you might add some new functions, or maybe you grab some code from somewhere else and you bring it in, and all of a sudden everything breaks. So it could be about dissecting it, like commenting parts out, so doing single line or multi-line comments as needed, trying to isolate the problems really, and hopefully the debugging tools in processing, it will help you, and you're more familiar with some of the errors, and also just sometimes printing out the values. Sometimes we can't really understand or see what the actual numbers or values are that are coming out. So using println, and you can include that with just like a variable name to put it into the console, or you could put a string there to make it clear. Sometimes if you're printing multiple lines, it's a little bit confusing what values correspond to what variables, but you could put the variable name in quotes and then put the plus sign and then the variable name, and then that would kind of clearly label that variable. So these are some techniques for going about that. And now, as I mentioned, we're going to move into some libraries. I'm going to show some examples of using libraries in processing. I should say that we have already been using functions in processing's core library. So those things like rect, ellipse, circle, line, those are part of the core library, and we're using those functions. But we can import other libraries, again, to extend processing's abilities. Some of these built-in libraries come pre-installed, and at this point, maybe we can see, maybe you've used them already, and actually, if you've been following these videos, you have, but maybe you can, think about where they might be. Beyond the built-in libraries, we can always install third-party or contributed libraries with the library manager. Here's where you can find all that. There are some cases where you can download libraries that aren't actually indexed here, and there's actually a library folder in your processing folder that can hold those new libraries, and usually when you restart processing, it should be able to find those if you're using things like that. Lastly, libraries usually include examples to show how to use the code. This could be on a separate website, or usually when you download the library, there are some examples. So you can use those as a base for building out sketches using those functions, using that functionality. So let's go ahead and look at some examples of that. So we're going to go over using a library called Control P5, and this is a really good library because it allows us to bring in UI elements like sliders, dials, and things like that to control our sketch. And this is just a different way of working. What we'll do, I already have this installed. You can see it's Control P5, but to install this library, you'll go up to Sketch, Import Library, and Add Library. From here, you can search for Control P5, and like I said, I already have it installed. You'll install it, and with this library manager, it should just, once it installs, it should be available to you to use, and then when you want to put it into your sketch, you could go up to the import library and add it, and it will add it here. I'm going to show you an example of starting using some example code that comes with it, and we'll build out some interactivity that way. Okay, so I want to start with a simple example of importing or using a library. What I'll do first is find some example code for it in this example section here. Uh, what I think I'm going to use, and this is a nice library, has a lot of different UI elements that we can use. I'm just going to use a Control P5 slider. I think sliders are really nice tools for us to start to use. And I'm going to just kind of follow along and take this code as I need to, and I'll use it inside of my sketch. So the first thing we want to do is grab this code here, and we want to import things. Import the library, set up a new control. This is like new element that's being created. We're going to call it CP5. That's the name for that. What we can do is grab, so these are some examples. Actually, maybe we'll just run this code first, just to get you to see, what this is. We can have sliders like this. This is controlling that value up there. We could have a vertical slider like this. You can play around with the sizing and things like that. I'm just going to use this slider here and use that to control a variable inside of my sketch. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll grab that first one that was there. I'm going to grab all the code from here on in, and I'm going to put this into a void setup. Let's grab that. I also, since I'm here, let me set up the size. Let's say 800 by 800. Okay, so we're just using this code. Now, here's where you want to start to connect your sketch. So whatever is here, this is the name of a variable that you're going to control. I'm going to use this to control the diameter of a circle. So I'm going to have a variable called diameter. So I'm just going to load that into there. And let me make the variable up here, diameter. Let's set it to 100. I guess in the beginning, although I think I can. Actually, what you can do here is you'll set the position where it is on the sketch. It's going to be 100 pixels over and 50 pixels down. Set the range. What size do we want this to be? Maybe it's from 0 to maybe it's 800 because our sketch is 800. Looks like you could also set the value if you wanted to. There's this code here. I mean, I've already set the value up here to 100, but if you wanted to set it here, you could. Now, what you'll do is to add different options here. You'll use a period, and technically, what this is, because spacing doesn't really matter. It's this kind of all in a line, but just to make it a little bit cleaner, it's written like that. And at the end, you'll see there's a semicolon. So, okay, let's keep going. And again, this is just a quick example of using this library. Let's draw, and we'll have our background here. Let's keep it simple, and then we'll have an ellipse. Let's put it in the center of the sketch, and let's throw in diameter. Okay, so I think we can just run this now. We've imported the library, created this element. This is a variable, or I guess it's like an object probably. We have some code to kind of set it up, and then you see the values here. So let's run that and just make sure it goes. Okay, so there's that, and now here we go. We're controlling this with a slider. And this, again, so this is one example of using a library, and you can see we're taking some example code, kind of, dissecting it, looking at it, and then bringing it in. So I want to just show a project that uses sliders in an interesting way, and I think this way of working, coding, but also allowing yourself some inputs while you're working with, the code is really nice because it's real time, and you can adjust things and you move things around, and you'll see the result rather than just going back into your code and having to recode things. If you make it in a really sort fluid way. If you add sliders or other inputs, it could be a nice way for you to work iteratively and work creatively. So this is a project called Space Type Generator, and this uses P5.js. But hopefully you can see the connection to processing. And you can see there's sliders here for the scale, the wave function that's kind of being thrown through this, animation, longitude, and yeah. So again, there's some really nice things that you can do here and adjust things, and you can export from here. There's different presets. Yeah, so really advanced, a really nice creative coding project. And so we're going to kind of look at ways, hopefully this inspires you to think about ways to set up your projects, and also maybe ways of working. Here you can actually change the text. So I might say add some sliders to your code or something, right? And this is nice because yeah, it's all live and it adjusts. So there are so many libraries that you can use in processing, and I think you should explore what you can do with all of these. As an assignment for right now, I think it would be good to maybe take an older sketch or create a sketch and try to incorporate the control P5 library. Again, I think it's important because it kind of changes the way that you work creatively. Being able to pull sliders or other UI elements and changing the form of things real time while a sketch is running is different than going back into the code and changing variables, testing things out. It's just not as immediate. So in this example, I'm going to take an older sketch, and this is an older sketch that we've created, two-dimensional array pulse, and write this or kind of add in sliders that allow me to adjust different things. Okay, so let's start. I have the example control P5 code here, and we'll go through the different steps of adding that in. Okay, so we're gonna grab again some code from the example files. First thing we need to do is import the library. That's always the first step. And I'll put that at the very top of this. And then I'm gonna create this control P5 object here. And we're just taking this code, and I might not use all of these little things. Like I'm gonna add a slider, but I probably just need a few different things on here. So I will simplify this a little bit. Let's go into the setup. Now I guess I should kind of first talk about what I want to do. Maybe I'll start with a slider that affects the sizer of these pulses, and then maybe something that affects kind of the randomness, so that maybe the t increment. Again, this sketch is using noise, Perlin noise. Yep, on this to affect the diameter. So yeah, let's go ahead and put that in the setup, and like I said, we'll put it above the initializing of the object so that I can access that. Oops. I'm gonna grab this. Oh, sorry, I added that too soon. What I needed, the most important things I'm gonna need are setting the position. In this case, and let's see, also setting the range and the value. So I think I can just, again, I don't need all this other stuff, so I might just simplify it. So set position, which you can kind of see is set up like this. Maybe I'll just grab that. Set position. So 20 pixels in and 10 pixels down, or 100 pixels down. I'm going to set the range here, maybe 0 to 80. Also, I should change the name of this. I'm going to use the variable sizer. Okay, and then I'll set the initial value of this. So this is something we could do. Change here. Maybe we'll start it at 50, and then once you're done there, whoops, spelled set wrong. Just delete that. Okay, once you're done, put this semicolon here, and that kind of ends it. So let's start with that. Also, I have this variable sizer. Let's go and see, hey, we never set up a variable, a global variable here, so let's make sure we've set that up here. Float sizer. Okay, that looks good to me. And I think if I run this, well, first of all, I don't think this would set this, let's see, this, so we've set up this variable or this slider sizer, and I'm going to run this and just show you that it's right now it's not like connected to anything really, so it's not doing anything. So what we want to do is get this slider here, this sizer slider, to talk to the data in the objects, these pulsing circles. So in the draw, what we need to do, and I started doing it here, we need to access that data. Specifically, we want to access diameter. So the way to access that is by using this dot syntax. So we're going to access that, and we're going to say, why don't we set that to the value of sizer? So now we've created this connection. Again, we created a slider up here. We named it sizer. We were using a variable, and we've made a global variable, so that's all set up. And let's just make sure that that works. So now you can see as I pull this, yeah, see how it's all kind of connected, and I can pull this down, make it really small. Okay, so that's the first kind of step. I was just looking at the slider, and I felt like it was a little bit too low on the screen. So again, this is the X and Y position. So if you're putting, I'm going to add another slider, but maybe we want to put it closer to the top so we have more space. Let's think about something else that we might want to throw in there. Okay, so maybe we'll want to change the increment of t. And again, this increment, which if we go down to the code, the greater this increment is, the maybe the rougher the kind of pulsing will be, and the smaller it is, the smoother it'll be. So let's try to do the same thing. Let's add a new slider. I can just copy and paste this over. A few things to consider. Obviously, I'm going to need to change this. Maybe I will create a new variable called t increment. And I need to change the position of these, otherwise they're going to be stacked on top of each other. So maybe this one is at 20 pixels in, 50 pixels down, and this one is at maybe 80 pixels. And now thinking about the range, I'm going to have to change this because the increment is going to be really small. Let me also just write that up here. So we have t increment, that's so that we have the slider set up. The range will probably be, I dare even say something like this might be too big, actually, 0 to 1, because it's getting added on. Maybe we'll start at 0.1. So we have the value set here. Okay, so that looks okay to me so far. Let's see. I should have said, you know, I just realized too, when I was pulling this example code, I probably pulled this code here is a little bit more complex. The code that if you wanted to reference just how to do a simple slider, I would pull Control P5 slider in the example code, and this one you can see is really simple, just set position, set range, and you can do things like you could put tick marks there, but this just gives you some examples of kind of standard code that you might use. Okay, so we have that set up, and then I think all we need to do is go back to our for loop. And now instead of diameter, what is the data inside of this object? We set it up as just increment, if you can see increment. So what we'll do is increment equals t increment, that other variable that we created. So now we've created that link. Let's try to run this, and I believe this should, let's bring this down, right? So that's kind of smooth. If we bring this up, yeah, it's getting like super wavy, like, you know, this might be too much, like that's a little bit crazy. But if we brought it down, it's like at 0, it's not doing anything, right? But then if at 0.06, it looks like that. So probably like going all the way to 1 is not really necessary. I would think about the range that I would want to use here. Let's see, maybe I'll change the range to something like 0.5. Yeah, so let's see what that looks like. And again, that gives me like a little bit more control. Okay. And yeah, I wonder if there's something else that I might want to try to control. We could even do something. Again, let's try to think about variables. Maybe we change the color of the background or the value of the background. Maybe I'll let me do it in steps. So I want to make a variable probably. Let's make a variable. We could, and now you can use different types of data. I think we'll make this called value. Let's just do a third slider here. We'll just call it value. We need this to be knocked down a little bit, so maybe we'll do 110. So it's 30 pixels down. So we don't want them to be in the same position because then you can't really use them. The range will be from 0 to 255. The initial value, let's start it at black and at 0. And we'll go into the draw, and here we'll write in value. So yeah, let's do this one. We have that set up. Bring the size down, bring increment up, and then can we change the value? Yeah. So again, if you were doing this, you could even like animate, and record this. Or if you're just trying to get stills, this is a good way for you to maybe figure out composition. And you might want to rewrite things like, for example, maybe I want to control the color of these things, and how could I rewrite that? Right now I think I set up a sort of random color variable, but maybe I want to actually control the red, green, blue values, or if you're you could use hue, saturation, brightness for color modes, but there's a lot of different options. And again, I think a good exercise right now is to try to rewrite or reuse or create a sketch that lets you manipulate the form, making real time with some sliders or some other elements. All right.